So community hospital laid off the police officers and kept the blue coats. They was like, well, Jenkins, y'all got another job. This is their main job. Now, I digress. I have been saying for years, I had been asking the hospital, please stop taking psych patients. We're really not equipped for it. So anyway, they lay us off. So the guy that gets killed, not only is he a good friend of mine, he lived next door. How do you go to a scene where you see people butchered and shot and stabbed, and then you have to turn off and go home and play with your kids?
Yeah. In this podcast, I had the privilege of speaking with two amazing Lake County Sheriff candidates. Ed Jenkins, lifetime Lake County Sheriff. Father was a sheriff at the Sheriff's Department. And then Steve Flores, current Chief of St. John, which is in Lake County. Both come highly regarded, highly respected officers and administrators. Ed Jenkins is the Deputy Chief, currently under Oscar Martinez. Both are amazing cops with high respect from the people that they work with. So I wanted to interview them. Things didn't work out where I could interview them at the same time. So I'm releasing these podcasts back to back, just so there's no bias on my end at all. I think that they're both amazing people and both will do amazing things at the Sheriff's Department if elected. So I wanted to give them the most impartial way of releasing the podcast. Hopefully you find value in it. It was absolutely amazing opportunity for myself to sit down and have an hour plus conversation with amazing officers in the area. So let me know what you think.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country. Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
Well, I'm here in studio today with Ed Jenkins. He's running for the Lake County Sheriff's Office. I'll let him give his story here shortly. He comes highly regarded, 30 years in law enforcement roughly, and everyone that I know of him speaks very highly. So I wanted to give him the opportunity to come on here and talk about what he wants to do, where he came from, how he grew up, all these types of things, and give the backstory, and then where he sees the future of the Lake County Sheriff's Office.
Good evening. My name is Edward G. Jenkins. Most people call me Ed. Like he said, I've roughly been with the Sheriff's Department just short of 30 years. Born and raised in the fantastic city of Gary, Indiana, 1971. My father was a Lake County policeman. My mother worked for the Gary school system. Graduated from the only high school in Lake County, Gary Roosevelt. Attended Ball State University. After attending Ball State University, I can honestly say during the summertime, the reason why I say I am the American dream come true, in the summertime, I would get a job at the county cutting grass. And I didn't have to ride more. I had to push more. And so I didn't end up finishing at Ball State. Came back, eventually got hired in the jail, and I worked in the jail for a couple of years. Got hired on the Lake County Sheriff's Department by, at that time, Sheriff John Bunsage. Attended the very first Northwest Indiana Law Enforcement Academy that was then being held at Valparaiso University. After graduating the police academy, I did what most police officers do. I worked patrol for a number of years, where you gain experience as far as report writing, traffic stops, dealing with OWIs, driving while suspended. In 2003, Roy Dominguez becomes sheriff, and I am then moved to investigation. During my investigation career, I had the opportunity to work cases such as burglary, homicide, battery, robbery, a lot of police-involved shooting. I can say in 2008, I had the misfortune of working 8 police-involved shootings by myself. Not that I just had the worst luck of anybody. In 2013, Sheriff Bunsage is sheriff again, And he then assigns me down to the Geary Homicide Unit, where I worked with some excellent police officers down at Geary Police Department, worked a lot of homicides, a lot of shootings. In 2015, the homicide unit was moved back out to Lake County, where it was then placed under Prosecutor Bernard Carter, where I was the main supervisor, where we investigated mainly a lot of the homicides we were investigating were in Lake County. I would say at that time we would average anywhere between 40 and 50 homicides a year, only about 6 or 7 guys. That was a lot of homicides. In 2017, Sheriff Martinez becomes sheriff. I am then promoted to deputy chief, where I have been deputy chief for the past 8 years. And in the 8 years that Sheriff Martinez has been sheriff, we have a real-time crime center. We have technology advancements such as LPRs, or license plate readers, Gray Key. We have things like Cellbrite. These are things that help as far as extracting information from cell phones. Our SWAT team equipment has been updated and advanced tremendously. A lot of our techniques in reference to the pit maneuver to stop vehicles in the most safe way, vehicles that are fleeing are being used. And I would like to think that I can say that we have improved a lot of the things and equipment and techniques that the Lake County Sheriff's Department didn't have. I believe we can go higher. I believe in the future, as more equipment and technology and training becomes available, as Sheriff of Lake County, I would like to take us there. I would like to improve the equipment for our officers to make sure they're safer. One of the things I would like to do is ensure that our children, which I believe are our most valuable resource, remain safe at schools. I would like to make sure we stop the spread of fentanyl. I believe fentanyl is dangerous. If you look at the statistics, it attacks most men between the ages of 35 and 44. Height of overdoses is generally between July. A lot of times things are being cut with fentanyl, and people are taking things they don't know, and it has tragic endings. I would also like to make sure that our animal shelter advances, to make sure animals are treated humanely. I would like to find them good homes. We are a no-kill shelter. I would like to make sure that anybody who is found to have purposely hurt an animal is prosecuted to the fullest. And one of the things I said in my speech, Kenny, I'll tell you, is that one of our unsung heroes of the Lake County Government Center are our correction officers in the jail. Two of the main responsibilities that the Lake County Sheriff in Indiana has is to A, serve the courts, and B, provide a jail. I can say unequivocally, with the 2 years I worked in the jail is a very, very difficult job to have. If I have a hard time with somebody I'm arresting and I spend 15 minutes with them, I cannot imagine spending 12 hours. They are the engine of the Sheriff's Department, and they don't get the attention that the Lake County police officers get, but I believe they deserve it. They work hard. They have a thankless job. It's kind of like a football team, the offensive line. Nobody claps for the offensive line, but you can't go anywhere in football without an offensive line.
Yeah, I'm a sports guy, so I love the analogies when it comes to sports. And we talked about a little bit before. I couldn't do that job. I really you're, at least as the police, you have the opportunity to meet good people.
Correct.
When someone's in jail, theoretically, they're there for a reason. Correct. And now that's all you're surrounded with, and you're locked up with them 8, 12 hours a day, whatever their shift is. That's a commendable job to have and position, to desire, I guess. If you want to be a corrections officer, more power to you, because that's a rough spot to be in.
Well, I've heard correction officers be told, and I think it's incorrect when they are either battered by bodily waste or spat on or whatever, and people say, well, that's part of your job. No, I don't agree with that. Mm-mm. And I believe that whatever measures can be taken to bring about charges against our staff members who are either assaulted physically, or by bodily waste, those charges should be brought to the prosecutor's office for charges. It should still carry the same weight. That's not, I mean, to me, they are part of our Lake County family, and we should do whatever we can to protect them. It's no different than the attention they would get if they were found to have battered an inmate.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go after the inmate who has assaulted a member of our staff the same way we would go after a correction officer if you feel as though he unjustifiably battered an inmate.
No. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you do that on the road to a cop, you're going to be charged accordingly.
Correct.
It's crazy that that's not reciprocated once they're in the jail.
Correct.
Let's back up a little bit, though. So you grew up in Gary?
Correct.
Play any sports in high school or?
Football.
Yeah.
I played football and I wrestled.
Okay. Did you get any scholarships at Ball State?
Oh, no. I will say this. I had a cup of coffee with the Ball State football team. What I mean by that, I walked on one spring. That fall, my grades were pretty good. And then I walked on that spring. And let's just say my grades weren't good after that, trying to play football. And I will definitely say it was a different level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Do you feel that playing sports or team sports translated to law enforcement well?
I do. I believe a lot of times when you're on the police department, like a football team, you develop a team-like atmosphere. If there's any one thing when you're not around the police department or when you're not on the team, if you think back to your sports days, some of the best times you ever had is riding the bus. You know, guys joking and jiving and laughing. That's what you miss. You miss the camaraderie. I really miss, and like I say, now I'm 50-some years old. I'm not trying to play football nowadays, but if I could, I would.
Yeah, I agree. I miss the camaraderie. Well, law enforcement gives you somewhat of that camaraderie.
Somewhat.
Yeah, but I definitely miss the camaraderie of sports and growing up playing them. Did you always want to be the police since your dad was a cop, mom was a teacher? Was that something that was always in your wheelhouse?
I really did. I'm like most kids. Now, my parents divorced when I was 2, but, obviously my dad was in my life. But my dad was my superhero. And, he wasn't a patrol long or whatever, but, when you come out and your dad's a policeman, there's no better feeling. And my dad is kind of like, he's a lot like me. He's a jokester. But one thing he said to me, and he's not tender talking at all. Most time you have to pick out the wisdom between the jokes. And we were talking about police work, and he said, "I was a policeman before you." And I said, "Yeah, but I've done it longer." And he looked at me as serious as he could, and he said, "And you've done it better."
Oh,
and I was like, "Wow, that meant something."
How many years was he on the job for?
21.
And then did he have any specialty, like you went to the bureau and all these other things? Or
No, so my father, because I asked him one day, I said, "Man, how did you get into police work?" So my father went to Vietnam in December 1967. He said, "I knew I was going to get drafted." He said, "When I went to he said, I went on and signed up." He said, "I went to the military." And he said, "I volunteered for everything but Vietnam." He said, "I volunteered for Alaska. I volunteered for Germany. I volunteered." He goes, "But December 1967, I was in Vietnam." And so when he came back, he was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. When you come back, they have different classes you can take. He said one of the classes he wanted to take was filled up. So he said, "This police class, let me try this." And he said he had a chance to work. He took the class and he had a chance to ride along with a couple of police departments in the Washington area. And he said, "I liked it because every day was different." And he said, "I was actually offered a job out that way, but he said he thought he wanted to come back home." So when he came back home, he applied for the police department. That's how he got interested in the sheriff's department.
What did your grandfather do?
My grandfather worked over in Chicago. So my grandfather and my grandmother, and I'm sure you've heard the term, they were part of the Great Migration. They were originally from Holly Springs, Mississippi. And on both sides, my mother's side was from Dyersburg, Tennessee. So I show you how life goes in circles. So when I was in college, I met a young lady. I ended up having a son. And after she graduated from Ball State, she was originally from Indianapolis. She moved to Mississippi to teach. And my son was brought up in Cleveland, Mississippi, right? So my son ends up getting his, which I would like to say I was a very big part of his life, even though he was 11 hours away. So my son gets his bachelor's and master's degree from Alcorn State University, where Steve McNair went to school. He now works at Russ College in Hollis Springs, Mississippi.
That's crazy.
What's the odds?
Yeah, that is.
And now he's made me a grandfather, so now I really feel my age.
When it comes, ironically, like my grandparents came from the Pittsburgh area, like so they came from the mills or from the coal mines to the mills, and that's kind of what brought them out here. So a little. I mean, I guess our lineage is kind of similar in that aspect.
I'll be honest with you. I think that's what everybody did. Like when you moved from the South, they moved up from the mills area. Now the mill areas. Now my father's father worked for a company over in Chicago. My mother's father worked in the mill. Most of my family members worked in the mill. My father's other uncles and uncles moved up to Detroit because of the car manufacturing jobs.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, all the manufacturing jobs are what brought the people up from the South.
You talked a little bit about your time in Lake County, but you also mentioned like the animal shelter and the dogs. Are you a dog person?
Oh man, well, it's funny. I've always been a dog person. My daughter has 2 cats that are currently at my house, and to be honest, I've always loved all animals. My dog, I put down, and he got sick. So in 2019. At that time, had not been deputy chief long, and I'll never forget the day. It was like the day before the 4th of July, and I thought he was like on his last leg, and I kind of talked myself out of it. I'm like, no, he's all right. He'll be all right. So for the 4th of July, I go outside and I start grilling, and it was early morning, so I let him out to go sit in the shade. And as it started to get hot, I tried to call him in, and I'm watching him. He couldn't get up. So I wouldn't put a leash on him, and I thought if I could pull him up to his feet, he could walk in. He couldn't. So my daughter and I, we go outside, we lay a bath towel down, take him, place him on the bath towel, and we pick him up and we carry him in. And that entire day, with people coming in and out the house, fireworks going off, he never got up.
Wow.
And it was, you don't think, we cops, you think you tough, you think you this, you that. So I take him to the vet, and because I put him in the back of my truck at the time. My wife goes, why are you putting him back? I said, well, he hasn't been to the bathroom. And I said, I'm pretty sure he has to go. He can't get up. So by the time I got him to the vet, he had used the bathroom in the back of the truck, which I didn't care about. And I carried him in and laid him down and scratched his head. And I had to go sign some paperwork. And it said, don't turn around and look. I kept saying to myself, don't turn around and look. And I turned around and he was looking for me. And this lady was trying to talk to me that worked for the vet. And she looked in my face and she thought because she knew I was a cop. So she's trying to talk to me about police stuff. And I looked up at her and I think she thought he's not trying to hear it. I gotta say. And I was destroyed that day. That was a rough day.
Yeah. My dogs are like my kids. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any kids. So
Yeah.
I mean, like my first police dog, you heard him when you came here. He's starting to get old. He's in 11, 12-ish mark. And I'm dreading that day. Not gonna lie. Yeah, like it's gonna be a rough one.
My I always wanted a dog. And I'm not brave enough. Sometimes people want you to adopt a dog, and anybody that adopts dogs at 1 and 2, I always just wanted to know what was in the dog as far as bowl aggression, because by the time they're 1, they got those big teeth.
Yeah.
I just want to know that when I reach down there and grab that bowl, I'm gonna come back up with 5 fingers. My buddy has. My buddy Danny Beta, who retired from the sheriff's department, he has 3 dogs. He has 2 Great Danes and a lab. His one Great Dane is 180 pounds.
Jesus, that's
so
huge.
when I go over to his house, his dogs will climb on top of me. And I had this brand new Dallas Cowboy jacket, right? And his dogs climb on top of me, and I'm scratching their heads, whatever. And they walk in, and then they walk off. And I'm sitting there, and I heard him go, hey, man, what's that on your sleeve? And I literally have dog slob from my shoulder. But I didn't. 180 pounds.
That's huge. Yeah, my dogs are 85 is the biggest one. I don't know if I could double that.
That's still a big dog, though.
Yeah, but 180 is in a different world. When you're working, what do you do outside of work that kind of keeps your mind off of police work, like to keep you like level-headed?
I'm a workouter.
Okay.
Sometimes even I'll even work out here at Chicagoland Fitness with Mario. Work out at I'm the guy when we're at the county, if they're in the gym. And I walk in, I go, oh, hey, man, you doing chest day? They go, no, not now. Not now. Not now. But that, I'm a Bible reader. I'm a worker outer. To be honest with you, I enjoy spending. My kids are grown, so I can't say I enjoy spending time with I have 3 daughters, right? And if there's anything that makes a man come full circle, is when you have daughters. My daughters are doing very well. My oldest daughter is like a physical therapy assistant. My middle daughter's in the social work, and my youngest daughter, who'll be 23, she's thinking about going back to school and finding her way. But everybody's doing very well.
None of them went in law enforcement or have aspirations?
No. You know, to be honest, my father tried to talk me out of it because he says, "Oh man, you're gonna have 3 jobs the rest of your life." But because I remember when I went into investigations, my wife never wanted me to go back to patrol, but I wanted to go back to patrol because I think patrol is one of the greatest jobs you can have. And I remember looking at her and said, "If you die doing what you love, it's really a tragedy."
For your family, it probably is.
For her, yeah,
Yeah.
but if you love it, do you love it?
Oh yeah, still every day I love it.
I think to be honest with you, I think it is. Tell you a brief story. In 2003, July of 2003, I get moved to the bureau. In December of 2003, my very first homicide was on Huber Boulevard, right down the street from the New Chicago Police Department. Right. Brenda Gaboyan, I know the name very well, stuck in my head. So Brenda Gaboyan's found dead. We're trying to work the investigation, and we all said that if it was random, we were going to have a very hard time solving it. At first, think boyfriend, something, whatever. We know she worked over in Illinois. She stopped at the currency exchange at Ridge Road and Broadway. So what ultimately ended up happening was there was a gas station that had been robbed, and this is how the case broke. There was a gas station that had been robbed, and during the robbery, scratch-off lottery tickets had been stolen. Now, you and I both know those scratch-off lottery tickets are inventory. They have numbers on them. Well, one of the gentlemen, not involved in homicide, but was acquainted with the people, tried to redeem one of the scratch-off tickets. So, of course, the lottery people called us. So they had him, whoever had that case had him dead on the robbery. So they say, "Hey, man, do you know of any other crimes you can help yourself with?" He goes, "Yeah, I know who killed that white woman in New Chicago." He gave us 2 names. And that's how the case broke. And to be honest with you, a lot of times in investigations, it takes a lot of luck. And so we got the case, we got him charged. So I said all this to say this, that I remember the day I called the daughter, because at the time when the mom was killed, the daughter was pregnant. So she got killed, I can tell you that, December 19th, 2003, right before Christmas. So, I'm thinking, this family's excited, I'm about to have this baby, it's Christmas time, and then her mother's tragically killed. They did it to commit a robbery. The sickening part about it is they took her purse, jumped in the car, and left. The money wasn't in her purse. The money was in her front pocket. So they literally killed her for nothing. So when I called the daughter to tell the daughter that the person that was responsible for killing her mother was locked up, the joy and the relief that I got back on the phone, whatever certificate, whatever trophy I got, it means absolutely nothing compared to hearing that peace you could give her. So now fast forward 20 years. December 2023, I'm at home, I'm doing what most people do. I think I was laying watching a football game, I'm scrolling Facebook. Sometimes as police officers, you forget and you minimize the impact you have on people's lives. So I'm scrolling, and I was Facebook friends with her. And I see this long dissertation that she put on Facebook, and she started talking about how 20 years ago today, my life was tragically altered because this is the day my mother was killed. And she went into the story, and she goes, but then Detective Jenkins came along.
That's amazing.
Oh my God! It sent chills up my spine. I mean, because like you say, I always remembered the family, but just to know, and that's the reason why when I made my announcement, I thought it was important to have the daughter there. When I made my announcement for sheriff, I thought it was important to have the daughter there to, as I took my next attempt, I'm going to claim it. My next step in my career to have her there.
That's awesome. Have you always remained close to her, or was that like the first time that you've...
That was actually the first time we had talked, and I think actually she's related to the Hamidis.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I think she's related to the Hamidis. So in my career doing investigations, I would like to say that my drive has always been, because think about it, I have children. Nobody wants to get that phone call.
Yeah.
Nobody, you know what I'm saying? Nobody wants, family member period, nobody wants to get the phone call to say, hey, somebody's dead, somebody did it. But then your drive is, how do I bring this family some peace, some justice?
With that case, did they see her go to the currency exchange? Is that what?
Yeah, they just happened to, freak occurrence, they just happened to be driving down Broadway and see this woman coming out the currency exchange, and they followed her down Ridge Road to New Chicago. And one of the guy's stories were so unbelievable. He said, oh, I was, they always go minimize. Mm-hmm. He goes, I had taken some cold medicine. I was listening to the music, and I fell asleep, and I heard boom, boom, and I woke up, and I said, what'd you do? I'm like, all right, come on, man. Come on. You know better.
They always try to minimize it, and they can't. They can't tell you the truth because, so they're always going to come up with some type of story that.
Well, they give you the most ridiculous stories, and I'm a firm believer in that. If you can't pick up on it, I could be verbose, I could be chatty, but if I talk to you long enough, you can't lie your way out of it.
Yeah.
Probably like you guys did in interdiction.
Yeah, very similar. You guys just have more of a controlled setting, but it's very similar. It's also all about reading people and that communication aspect of it. When you were at the county, did you have any aspirations? You did a lot of things, but did you have any aspirations outside of that you wanted to accomplish that you didn't get an opportunity besides becoming a sheriff?
No, I just wanted to do the best job I could. I'm pretty sure I'm like everybody else. I think our main goal is just to make our parents proud and make your family proud. And that was always my goal. To be, I tell a lot of our young patrolmen that don't just get on here and cruise. Get you a nice, easy job. Don't have to worry about call out, 8 to 4. I said, man, you got one career. Make the most of it. I said, I wanted at the end of my career for a judge or a prosecutor or a defense attorney to say, that's Detective Jenkins right there. Or, you know what I'm saying? Even though, because don't get me wrong, call out is hard. Because call out it's January and it's 2 a.m. and it's bone cold and you're in a nice warm bed and to say, the phone went off. I have to get up, go out here in this cold. And, for the first I'm like everybody else. When they woke me up, the first 2 minutes, I would absolutely hate life. But once I got up and got showered and got dressed and got going, I was fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
With your wife throughout this process of your career, has there ever been anything that she disliked, discouraged, or was she always super supportive? I get as a spouse, you want your spouse to be there. You don't want them missing holidays and birthdays and all that type. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, is there been anything that within the profession on the specialties that you did in the detective bureau or whatever else you did that she was like, man, I wish you wouldn't do that?
I think her biggest fear was me being in patrol.
Okay.
It didn't, bureau never bothered her. She, the call outs and stuff like that came with it. I can honestly say I could not have done it without her. To be supportive, to be there, to know that, hey, my kids are going to be taken care of. No matter what, my kids are going to be fed. They're going to be taken care of. I was sitting there thinking this morning, I was getting ready for work, got out the shower, and I go, how can you really replace a wife? You pull a drawer open and your clothes are washed and folded, because I didn't wash them. And then when you add in the fact that when I first got on the police department, and I didn't even go into this, I worked 2-3 jobs like everybody else. I did 20 years at community hospital. I still work at the stroke rehab place on 101st and Broadway. Met a lot of good people, man. I'll be honest with you. I really think sometimes at the hospital was harder than the police job.
Yeah.
Because, when you're at the hospital, okay, like if you work let's say you work in a wedding, you work in a reception. If somebody acts stupid, you can always put them out or you can arrest them. Well, a lot of times when you're at the hospital, they are the patient.
Yeah.
And they don't. So, and when people come into the hospital, they come in with their problems, where there's sometimes they're psych problems, they're alcoholics, they're overdoses, or just family turmoil, and you're having to deal with that. So that, to be honest with you, my de-escalation skills were highly sharpened at community hospital.
Yeah, that makes. I mean, yeah. I guess I never really looked at it. That makes sense because they have to stay there, especially if and some of those overdoses, psych patients don't want to be there. Now you have to like convince them and talk them down without. Yeah, that's.
So do you remember when the guy got killed at community hospital? The officer got killed it was 2020. So pandemic happened. Still at community hospital. So community hospital laid off the police officers and kept the blue coats. They was like, well, Jenkins, y'all got another job. This is their main job. Now, I digress. I have been saying for years, I had been asking the hospital, please stop taking psych patients. We're really not equipped for it. So anyway, they lay us off. So the guy that gets killed, not only is he a good friend of mine, he lived next door.
Wow.
Right? So that weekend prior to, it's funny how God does things. That weekend prior to, he and I hang out that whole day. And we went and got something to eat. And he says to me, he said, hey, man, when are they supposed to call you guys back? I said, well, I heard they were going to call us back in July. He said, I don't know. That July schedule out. I don't know. And so I didn't think nothing about it. So I saw him again Sunday. He was grilling chicken. And I want to say that next day, they brought in, now mind you, at the time, he's 60 years old. They bring in a 21-year-old kid that was a 6'5", Division I, 300-pound football player who they believe he was slipping in the psych episode. And whatever happened. I don't want to detail because I'm not sure. But ultimately, 2 people lost their lives.
Wow. I vaguely remember that now that you're talking about there was a security guard that. Yeah, right. Sorry.
He was a retired county cop.
Okay, I didn't realize that he was a cop.
He's actually how I got to the bureau.
Really?
So he was in the bureau, and when Dominguez came in, they promoted him to be commander over civil, and they said we need a young patrolman. It seemed like our lives were connected. They said we need a young patrolman to replace him in the bureau. They was like, well, Jenkins takes good reports. He shows up on time and whatever. And I got a chance to go to the bureau, and I wanted to make sure that I was not you never want to be the cop in the bureau where people go, don't ask him. Mm-hmm. You want to be the guy that go, that's the guy we can depend on.
Yep. No, yeah, I think law enforcement in general, you want to be that guy.
Correct.
What was your most rewarding position?
I would definitely say investigations. And let me go back. You asked me, what did I used to mentor kids too.
Okay.
I used to mentor young men because I got tired of seeing young men blow their lives on bad decisions. You ever seen the movie Boys in the Hood?
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
So what a lot of young people realize is the whole part of that movie that they miss, they talk about them hanging out, this, that, and the other. The movie is when the 3 of them are going back there to get revenge, and Trey says, let me out. So what I try to tell young people is it's the decisions you make that shape your life. He made a decision to get out of the car. He lived and went on and lived his life. The other people that stayed in the car eventually end up going to prison and dying.
Talk a little bit about that. Do you feel that mentoring kids and giving them an avenue and understanding? Did you grow up in Gary?
Yeah, I did.
So, and I'm not trying to take anything away for disparage Gary at all, but it's a rough area.
It can be.
And do you think showing people the avenue of success and prosperity instead of the avenue of, I guess, not that?
Well, and to your point, I think to a certain extent, Gary gets it right. You have, I would say the vast majority of people in Gary are tremendously good people, hardworking, and it's probably like a police department. It's the microcosm. It's the small part that makes some of the area rough. What I like to do is become tangible. Well, if he can do it. It was funny after I made my announcement for sheriff. One of the guys I grew up with put my picture on Facebook with a title caption, "Who says a boy from Marshalltown can't be sheriff?" And that meant all the world, all the world to me, that a guy can, and that's the reason why I say the American dream come true of what you can do as far as in just keeping your head down and doing your job, just working. And that's all I've ever done. Like I said, been married for 30 years, 4 kids, 3 with my wife, and that's all I've done. I didn't shortcut it. Right. No shortcuts.
I guess I didn't word that right, but by you laying a foundation for people, a roadmap someone that maybe is at that why in their life, like I can go do this and make quick, easy money, or I can work the hard way and I can be prosperous. You've laid that foundation. Now they can look at you as, aspiration, as a role model. Maybe that's not nothing you want, but you've laid that foundation and you can be like, I guess, a light in a rough situation.
I actually get your point because like, when I would talk to kids, first of all, I would tell the men that were in the mentoring program, they would walk past the kids like they were furniture, right? It was just a mentoring thing is something to do, right? But I told them if you have to make these kids think you care in order for them to listen to you. If you walk past me and you don't pay me any attention, then the first time I do something wrong, you want to fuss, I don't want to hear what you got to say.
Yep.
So what I would do is I would kind of roughhouse with the kids. We'd walk by, grab a kid in a headlock, or I would have them do a push-up contest with me. By the way, none of the kids ever beat me. We would have and like some of the fathers would come back to me and they would say, "Man, my son is at home every day doing push-ups, but that's what I wanted." And then I would tell kids, and I would give them a business card, and I'd write my cell phone number on it. I said, "Listen, if you're in the car with somebody," I said, "We've all been young men. We've all done stupid stuff. A different time in my life, something going this way could have gone completely different. I could be on a different road, right?" I said, "But if you guys are going to do something, to your point about being a shining light," I said, "if you're brave enough to say, 'Let me out the car,' I said, 'I don't care what time of day it is, call me. I'll come get you and take you home.'"
Yeah, that's amazing. Because you don't have a lot of people that are giving back to the communities that they grew up in when they leave. I guess I'm not meaning it's a rough area, just a rough area.
No. The truth, man, it can be rough. But in my time at the Lake County Sheriff's Department, I found that it can happen anywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'll be when it happens. Normally, if you do see something happen in South County, normally when it happens in South County, it happens pretty big. But I do get your point.
Yeah, no, I like that you gave back. You came back to the community that you grew up in. You gave them a roadmap of success,
Mm-hmm.
and you see a lot of kids that are in between that why in life, and they look like, well, I don't have a role model right now, and this guy is offering me, and I see like he has flashy things, he has lots of money or whatever,
Yep.
and then they're like, well, I don't know what this looks like, but I know what that looks like,
Right.
and I want to have what he has. And their moral compass kind of gets skewed because they don't have the guidance on the other side.
My father said something to me one time that, for whatever reason, stuck in my head. It worked. Once again, I told you have to pick the wisdom out between the jokes. And he says to me, he said, "That's how you get caught thinking you can't get caught." And I thought about that. And I said, that makes a lot of sense. Nobody says, "I'm going to go rob a liquor store and get caught." Nobody says, "I'm going to go sell cocaine and get caught." And then I remember older guys would tell me all the time, when you start thinking you're smarter than everybody else, you're in trouble. And for whatever reason, I had a lot of, I will tell you how fortunate I am, Kenny. So I'm from the Marshalltown area. Come down Central Avenue from the expressway, the first neighborhood you come into in Gary's. So my parents lived and grew up 5 houses down the street from each other. So my mother knew my father's side, my father knew my mother's side. So I knew both sets of grandparents very well. And I had a lot of aunties and uncles that poured into me. Spent time. That's probably the reason why I am like I am, because I had a lot of aunties and uncles and cousins. And I had people who cared and spent time with me. I'm what you see.
That's a lot of like a family community real close. So
Correct.
if you do mess up, it's probably at a younger age they can kind of smack you in the back of the head and be like,
"Oh, smack you in the back." Oh. My mother was very, and I tell mothers this a lot when they're raising their sons. My mother was very inflexible. She had a standard, had to live up to the standard. So I tell mothers a lot of times, particularly with boys, not that boys are any better than girls, but boys. I said, "Get you a little Rottweiler puppy." I said, "When that puppy is small and it's growling and snapping at you, you laugh at it. Funny. But when it's 90 pounds, boys are the same way. When he's 2 and 3 and he's telling you no and he won't come here, it's funny. But when he's 15 and 16 years old and now the testosterone is kicking in, everybody's telling him how deep his voice is getting, he's got that little man strength on him, and now he's challenging you." And, I would get a lot of mothers. A lot of mothers will come to me and say, "Hey, man, can you come talk to my son?" I said, "Let me ask you something. If I gave you a pile of dirt and it took you 15 years to move it," she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Can I clean it up in 20 minutes?" He goes, no. I go, right. I said, whatever this young man is, you've created for 15 years. Can't clean it up in 20 minutes. I said, I can go give him a speech and I can do this and that, but he has to, man. I had a cousin that kept getting in trouble, and I said, hey, man, listen, I'm not going to keep talking to you because I realize that until you make up in your mind you want to do right, you're not going to do right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of law enforcement. It's the problem's got so bad, so then they call the cops, and it's a problem that has happened over an expanded amount of time, and they want us to have a resolution in a short period of time. It just doesn't work at all.
And to be honest, I don't think that scares straight. Like one time I did when we were doing mentoring, we used to give tours of the jail. So we took the young men out to the jail, gave them a tour of the jail. I had a young man that was locked up for selling narcotics come out and talk to them. I would like to think that they planted a seed and it bear fruit. Hoping it did.
Was that like I know there's a show where they were locked up, scared straight for an extended period of time. Was that like a one-day type thing, or?
Yeah, they Lake County.
Yeah,
so
no.
Yeah. But when you, because by the time you got hired on, they had the new jail on. Right?
Yep.
So when I first hired on, there was no new jail, and they had these drunk tanks. And when you came in through the booking door, you had to go along this back hallway, and they had this big metal door, and you open it up on the weekend. It'd be 30, 40 guys in there, pile on top of it. Some guys laying there with their head up on the toilet, and I go, if I thought about breaking the law, I wouldn't want, I don't want to live like this.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, even the holding tanks now at Lake County can start to smell pretty good.
Oh, man. It was funny. One of this case was kind of interesting. We had one case where found a husband and wife stabbed to death, right? So we're in the house processing the scene, and as I walk away from the house, one of the guys standing around watching us process says, hey, man, I need to talk to you. He goes, I think the guy that did this wanted the victim's shotgun to do a robbery, and the victim would give it to him. So I run him back to the station, get a statement. I call our crime lab. I go, hey, man, check that house for a shotgun. Check the house. There's no shotgun there. So now I know I'm on the right track. So come to find out, this man he was already on parole. So I called parole. They said, oh, he just violated. I said, can you do me a favor? Can you lock him? They said, yep. So they lock him up for the parole violation. And in doing that, that kind of gave me enough time to do my peripheral interview. So I did interviews around anybody else around him. So it was so amazing. I get the guy's father in custody. I get the guy's father down to the station for a statement. So when last time you saw your son? He looks at me. He says, the day he brought me a shotgun and tried to sell it to me. So I get his statement. So I bring him back down. Let him lie to me all over again. And I said, so when did you take that shotgun and try to sell it to your father? And he slid back in the chair and he said, I'm in prison. Give it to me. He gave it to me and he got locked up. He did die in prison.
Full confession?
Yeah.
And it was all over a shotgun?
He wanted the victim's shotgun so he could do a robbery. And because he wouldn't give it to him, he stabbed him and his wife to death.
Jeez. What, that's got to be challenging. I don't know. To see the amount of death takes a special person. So I commend you for that because I don't know if I could handle that.
You have to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
You know, how do you go to a scene where you see people butchered and shot and stabbed, and then you have to turn off and go home and play with your kids?
Yeah.
Gentlemen, whether you are leading the charge at work or just in line at happy hour, you need gear that can keep up. From our rugged beard and oil balm that tame the wildest whiskers to our classic pomade that locks in that clean, commanding look, Semper Suave has your six. No flakes, no fuss, all day, and battlefield level confidence. So square that beard line up, even though people in counterculture think that I don't have a beard. Donut shop. Semper Suave has got your six. Make you look slick. And keep you sharp for critical missions or to serve and protect. Check out Semper Suave. We're thrilled to have them as a sponsor. Let us know what you think.
That's what I'm saying. I don't, it takes a special person.
It does.
What was the most rewarding homicide that you solved or got a confession for?
So when David Krafchania was murdered,
Can you lay a foundation of what that was?
So David Krafchanian was a guy who had a business with a guy named Thomas Smith on Central Avenue, just outside of Gary. And the last time anybody had ever seen David Krafchanian alive was he was going to meet Thomas Smith to get his money that he owed him. He disappeared, but through the investigation, I was able to ascertain Thomas Smith confided in one of his mechanics that we didn't have to worry about Dave anymore because I shot Dave in the back of the head. We were able to find David's car. David's body was in the back, missing his arms. Now, before we found his body, he had a friend, a childhood friend named Michelle Tichy. And Michelle says, when she initially came to see me, she said, Jenkins, I just want my friend's body back. I just want his body back. So I believe she's married to a Hammond cop. So when we were able to get David's body back, it didn't stay right there. She goes, okay, now I want justice, which I knew that's what was going to happen. So long and the short of it is, when we were able to get to conviction, I remember we went to the back room and she was in tears and she goes, I heard the cuffs go. I'm happy now. That's reward. You know, so to bring that family, like I say, and to show you, I tell a lot of our policemen, and I don't know if you've experienced this. A lot of policemen get hired on. You're out there working the road. You bring your charges about. You file your charges. 9 times out of 10, you never hear from it. And you really don't really understand the gravity of depriving somebody of their liberty. Right? So one day I stopped by roll call, and the sergeant says, "Hey, Chief, is something you want to say to the men?" I told the guys, I said, "Yeah." I said, "I want to tell you guys what's going to make you guys better policemen. Cross-examination." They go, "What?" I go, "Cross-examination." I go, "To you right now, it's a game." And I say, I hate to use the term game. I said, you got hired on the police department, you got a uniform, gun, car, all this and that. You're out making arrests, you fill out your affidavits, you bring these people to jail, and you never hear from it again. I go, until you're sitting in that courtroom with 12 people looking at you, and a judge sitting right next to you, and a defense attorney with a high IQ asking you every little question. I said, and it makes you wonder, did I break the law? You know, did I commit this crime? I said, that will make you. And I really tried to explain to people when they asked me about running for sheriff. I said, listen, man, I'm not telling you what I'm going to do. I'm telling you what I've been doing and what I will continue to do. I didn't do this for a position. I didn't do this. This is stuff I've been doing.
You talked a little bit earlier about like going and putting like an honest day's work, going out there. One of my good friends is Tom Rizzo. He travels and speaks, and he's a captain out in New Jersey, but he always uses this analogy of like driving a Ferrari, or you could drive like a station wagon. And he's like, most people, you know, when they get on the job, they want to drive that Ferrari. They see it's nice, shiny, ready to go. He's like, I want my 20 plus years to be in that Ferrari, and then the next person to see that Ferrari to take over and run it. He's like, or you could sit back and, you know, do the bare minimum. That car's going to last you forever. He's like, but if you drive that Ferrari like it's supposed to be driven, he's like, everyone was going to want to be driving it. I don't know. It was an interesting analogy. I meant to bring it up earlier.
No. And to your point, and that's kind of what I told these younger officers is, I said, you don't want to get to the back end of your career and go, shoulda. You know what I'm saying? Okay, like, and I'll give you for instance, I could get on the police department. We have a property room. I work property. Guess what? Ain't no call out. Ain't no cases. Bring me the property. Oh, I got marijuana. Okay, put it for destruction. Oh, and I'm not demeaning or minimizing what they do, but I wanted the experience. You know, I wanted the experience of looking back, saying, prime example. We had a case one day. It blows me away. This young lady got mad at her mother, went and laid next to her mother in the bed, and then stabbed her mother 44 times in the chest and killed her.
Jeez.
So we went from, I got called out 2 or 3 o'clock that morning, stayed all the way out to about 4 or 5 o'clock that evening, went and got into bed to get some rest, sleep 2 hours, and got called out in regards to that case because some more things were developing, and that was another 12 hours. So when you look back and you go, man, I remember I was tired, I was this, I was that. Another case, and it made me come home and talk to my daughters about it. So there was a guy named Deron Fuller. Deron Fuller just got convicted. So Deron Fuller got this young lady pregnant that he did not want to be the mother of his child. And So he talked her down to Williams School. Williams School is like 19th and MLK. So he talks her down there, right? She's 8 or 9 months pregnant. She goes to St. Joe College. They're supposed to be talking. Last time anybody's ever seen her. That was in 2015. Nobody has seen her since. At all. So he killed her. So we ended up finding him. I ended up questioning the young lady that we found him with. She said I was a little too rough on her as far as the questioning. She ended up, her and Duran, because we couldn't get, because we never found the body. So her and Duran ended up joining the military, leaving the area, which meant she ended up over, I think she ended up over across sea somewhere. So we had to wait for her to come back. So she's stationed in San Antonio, Texas. So Sheriff Martinez agrees to, because it's an important case to us. This woman was killed with a baby, and he cared enough about the families, and he allowed us to go down there. It was funny. It was me, Ed Gonzalez from Gary PD, Jeremy Ogden, Michelle Jackowitz. And to show you how luck works, just so happened I did not go with Gonzo or Ed Gonzalez and Jeremy Ogden to pick her up. I stayed at the station, San Antonio, with Michelle Jackowitz. And when they went to go pick her up, the witness said, if Jenkins is there, I'm not talking. So the joke became, wherever Jenkins is, hide him so they don't. So you know how when you watch an interview, they got a little room where you said they call it a closet. They took and stuck me in this little closet, and I had to sit there for hours while they interviewed her, while they got the rest of the information. And if I shuffled around in the little room, somebody would text me and be like, quiet, I can hear you in there. So if you ever hear the running joke, we stuck Jenkins in the closet. That's what it's about. The long and the short of it is we were able to get the conviction, and he is now in prison.
Did she give a statement that
she did give a statement? Well, she was playing. When I interviewed her, this is what she said, because the guy's name was Duran. Her name was Rochelle. He says, well, he told me something happened to Ro, and he did it. And he had to get rid of her stuff. I said, so what do you think that means? I don't know. You saw him getting rid of her stuff? Yeah. You know what that meant. And she would not get, and that's, I rarely get angry. But it was just it was frustrating to sit there and lie. Come on, you know what that means. Tell me what it means.
Yeah.
So, and he had 2 cousins who had actually, how the case actually got started, he had 2 cousins that lived down in St. Louis. How the case got started was not the missing person report, even though there was a missing person report with Maryville. The 2 cousins contacted us and said, my cousin told me he killed a woman and buried her body. That's how we got it.
Wow. What, he wouldn't cooperate, I'm guessing, even after the conviction?
He lawyered up the whole way.
I just feel bad for the family.
And now with me having 3 daughters,
Yeah.
that's what kind of brought me when you asked me. So I come home and I have because it was right around the time my daughters were starting to date. So I said, listen, if you're dating a young man and he's angry with you, or you feel like he's angry with you, don't get in a car with him. Call me, I'll come get you.
Yeah. Have you worked any homicides involving kids or children?
No, thank God. I worked, the kid was not killed. This one, and I may have somebody look at this one. This one needs to be looked back into. It was a bunch of people hanging out in the house. CPS comes in the house because whatever reason, CPS comes in the house. See, the young lady, it's 3:00 in the morning in Gary. She does a tremendous job. The mother and father got arrested at the hospital. She took the kids back to the house to bring them back to where they lived. She ended up coming in the house. She identifies all the adults there. She looks in the refrigerator. She says, if I come back here later today and there's no food in the refrigerator, I'm going to take these kids. I forgot how many kids. She leaves. Kenny, she's not gone from the house 15 minutes. A homicide call comes from the house.
Wow.
So it really wasn't hard to figure out who did it. When you get back, if one person is missing, one person is dead, and everybody else in there saying they don't know what happened, it ain't hard to figure out what happened. Well, the reason why I say that, the part that bothers me about this is the only person who would say what happened was that woman's 3-year-old child who said, CJ shot my mom in the face and blood was coming out. I hate CJ. And I remember thinking, if they don't get this young man some help, he is going to have rage in him. The person that was a suspect was on parole. He wasn't supposed to be here. So I called parole, had him locked up. He was at Mount Sterling Prison in Illinois. Me and my partner went down and interviewed him. And it was the most confrontational interview I've ever had to do. And he wouldn't tell me anything. I actually thought we were going to end up tussling. He didn't give it to us. So that might be one we may want to look back at. Maybe some of those adults who actually witnessed this man kill this woman might be willing to come forward and
in front of the kid, huh? Man, see, that's what's crazy to me. Like just talking to you right now, like the amount of, I guess, death over things that seem so minor. Like it's crazy to me.
I think it's all, I don't want to say impulsive. It's not that these people are, very seldom do you run into a person who's just a killer. A Darren Van.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you work that case by chance?
I did a lot of the follow-up on it.
Okay.
But very seldom do you work with a person who's just a stone cold killer. I think a lot of these cases are very impulsive or crimes of passion or in the heat of the moment, and they really the shocking thing. I don't want to say shocking thing. The thing that kind of brought it to me how serious. So the very first homicide I worked, I was in CSI for a very short time, and you see a body laying on the floor, bullet hole in it. You know it's dead. He's dead, right?
Yeah.
When you take it back to the coroner's office and you watch them autopsy this body and you go, if you ain't dead when you come in here, you are when you leave. And it was just one of many, many homicides. I worked the Ron Hassey and Michael Denvit. Michael Denvit had been missing for 2 years. He was last seen at the Old Dusty Mule, Half Street.
Wow.
Me and my partner, Shaw Spurlock. Shaw Spurlock was a detective out of Hobart. He was down, I believe his daughter's an attorney. Shaw Spurlock was a damn good attorney. So we interview Hassey, and Hassey, I want to talk to my attorney. Talks to his attorney. His attorney gets on the phone and says, my client will show you where the body is buried, but you're not to ask him any further questions. He takes us out to his parents' 250-acre farm. Now, mind you, 250 acres. So if he don't show us, we'd never find it. We put down 2 shovels. He said, dig in between here. We find Michael Denvit's body wrapped in a rug.
Wow. Get a conviction on that?
They said they couldn't prove what the manner of death was, so the only thing we were able to charge him with was illegal disposal.
Is that a misdemeanor too?
It was like a level, at that time it was a class D.
Oh, it's like
Like level 6.
like the lowest felony.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as you can see, I've had an interesting career.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's the most impactful besides the first one that you talked about in 2003? Any family members or friends, anything like that?
No, thank God. Thank God. I've never had a case that involved family members or friends. I would just like to think just being helping people. It was very funny. We had a guy one time rob a dope dealer, right? And caught him. And of course, the dope dealer pressed charges. So I thought it was an opportunity to help him out. I said, all right, he don't want to press. I said, so I'm going to help you. So I put the young man in my car and I drove him to Burger King at 61st and Broadway. And I asked for the manager. So the manager came up and I identified myself. How you doing? I'm Detective Jenkins from the Sheriff's Department. This young man needs a fresh start. And she hired him on my word.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool, man. You definitely had a positive impact and kind of laid that roadmap, and that's amazing. Like outside of just what your job was, I guess, like the extra mile, I guess you went to improve others' lives. That's pretty impressive.
I try, and whenever a young man comes to pick up, and I took this from Shaw Spurlock. Whenever a young man comes to pick up my daughter, and he had this little phrase, and I stole it from him. He would say, "Listen, what you're taking out of here is very important to me. I expect to get it back. If she makes you that mad, bring her home." And then another guy said, which is kind of still hard for me to deal with. He said he told his daughter's boyfriend, he goes, "If she gives it to you, that's between her and God. But if you take it, that's between me and you."
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we would like to think our children wouldn't do that, but come on, let's be real.
Yeah. Kind of wrapping up here. What do you see the future of law enforcement? Where do you want the Lake County Sheriff's Department to go, and how do we continue to recruit and get people to want to be the police? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but
no, because one of the things I did think about doing is starting a cadet program, where if you get like I don't want anything that could be mixed up with a Lake County police uniform, but if you got a tan khaki uniform and you took a Lake County Sheriff's Department patch and put it on a sleeve, and had young men and young women work around the sheriff's department, maybe that's enough to pique their interest in wanting to do the job. And maybe also do a better job of saying, hey, listen, I think some of the best experience you can have is starting in that jail. It works on your communication skills. Because think about it, okay, when you're a policeman, and sometimes guys are nervous or whatever, and some things are cultural. So a lot of times, like when I used to tell the nurses at community hospital, loud does not necessarily constitute combative. Sometimes people are just loud. They may be demonstrative, they may but it doesn't make them violent. And I think sometimes when you take a person from an environment who is not used to that, okay, like I'll give an example. If I'm from Jasper County, and all I've ever heard, whether it's true or untrue, Gary's this, East Chicago's that, Hammond's this. So now I get a job and I become a policeman. And now somebody's loud and demonstrative. I get nervous, and maybe I do something I shouldn't do. Whereas if you kind of get a start in a jail and you kind of get used to it and you kind of realize, okay, this dude just, and I'm sure you've experienced, some dude just talking.
I use that analogy when I go and talk to people about just communication in law enforcement. If you're an only child, the household you grew up in, probably going to be quiet. If you have 6 or 7 siblings, in order to be heard, you talk at a different decibel just because, and that's just conversation. And I see it a lot of times, if you take that only child and during the FTO process, you take them into a household discussion, or you get called to a situation and there's 5 people, you walk in and you're like, oh, they're all yelling. And the first thing what cops do is tell them to quiet down.
Right.
The last thing those 5 people want to hear is you telling them to quiet down. And they're like, we're not yelling at each other. We're having a conversation, but you're just not used to it because it's it's the environment you grew up in is not the same that the environment they grew up in. So talking, as long as it's not violent and those types of things, talking can be at different decibels based on the environment you grew up in. So it's interesting that you brought it up because I use that very similar analogy when I talk and teach younger cops on how to communicate. You can't take your worldly views and put it on everyone else. You have to be open-minded enough to see everyone's worldly views.
Well, like the first time I took my wife over to my father's house, they were playing cards. My father, my uncle, and my cousin, they were playing cards. And I'm so used to the way they play cards, I'm not even paying attention, right? And I see my wife keep looking back at them. And I go, what is wrong with you? She goes, are they about to fight? I go, no, they do this every week.
Yeah.
And one of the things, too, I try to explain to cops, I think the one thing to keep cops, I want to do the best I can. We don't communicate enough with our young policemen. We don't.
Agree.
And I tell cops all the time, what's the one thing that gets us killed? Complacency. It's 500 times you answer the alarm call, 501st time it's not. If one of the homicides I worked, and it will probably stay with me forever, is Jeff Westerfield. Jeff Westerfield, right? If Jeff Westerfield did what 99.9% of the police officers did, he's probably here today. He's working in Metro Center, and he hears a domestic involving a gun, and he knew they were working short on the road. He went over there to back those guys up. Now, by the time he got there, the suspect with the gun was gone. 99% of the police officers would say, okay, y'all got it. I'm going to go back to the Metro station. He didn't. He went and tried to find the guy, and I believe his last words were, Gary, go into the description of the suspect, and he turned around and opened up. Scott Patrick, 8094. Scott Patrick is going to a disabled vehicle call. Now, you and I have worked the road. You go to a disabled, and I'm speculating. We're working midnights, early morning. They give us what we call a 1046 vehicle. What do we normally say? Man, y'all go ahead and get a table at the Paragon. Y'all go get a table. I'm going to go check on this 1046 vehicle. He gets out, and he walks up to the car, and the guy shoots him in the neck and kills him. And the thing that bothered me the most about it was that at the time his wife was pregnant. They were expecting their child. And I know what most parents are doing, or expecting parents are doing. They're excited. They're talking about what they're going to teach that kid. And it breaks my heart that, you took that away from them. That breaks my heart.
Were you working when Patrick?
I was in the bureau.
Oh, okay.
I was in the bureau then.
They've been doing I don't know, I've seen a couple YouTube where the suspect in that's like either trying to get talking about it and trying to get his sentence reduced or something along those lines. And I'm just like, it was a stolen car that like no one needed to die over it.
Correct.
And you made that decision and the cop was like, what, 22, 24?
Because you didn't want to go back to prison.
Yeah.
Come on.
And I don't have a lot of sympathy for him in that situation.
Oh.
And ironically, the same suspect that killed Westerfield, I had dealt with a few, maybe months before that.
Mm-hmm.
He had a warrant and he fought us for a while. And I just look back at that and like, man,
I interviewed him. We put him in an interview room. I think I interviewed Blount about 4 hours. And I had a commander at the time who was very tight with compliments. He didn't give it to me, but he would not confess. But I think the key part was that the commander called me up. He goes, "Man, you did such a good job with that interview." He goes, "You may not have gotten a confession, but he said some stuff he is going to have a hard time explaining." He go, and I've had people who work with defense attorneys walk up on me that I've never seen before. Walk up, they go, "Hey man, I'm working on the case you're working on." They go, "You do damn good interviews." And I tell people all the time, when you do an interview, if you go into it looking at it as an interrogation, I look at it as a conversation. And if we talk long enough, you can't keep. I'll get it.
Are you naturally very extroverted, like growing up, outgoing, talking to people? Is that
So if I tell people I'm introverted, everybody go.
Yeah. Well,
Did you pick up on that yet?
Yeah, I had asked the question, but
Did you pick up?
I didn't know if maybe it's something that's progressed over your career that brought you more out of that, or if you always been pretty outgoing.
No, like they say opposites attract. Mm-hmm. My wife is not an extrovert. I am. We can go someplace and she goes, "You can find somebody to talk to, can't you?" I go, and like I say, what you see is what you get. I'm a genuine person. I'm not trying to be sneaky. So a lot of times in this campaign thing, I tell people, I go, "This is not me putting," because people can spot a phony,
especially cops.
You can spot a phony, and I just try to be as genuine as I can. What you see is what you get.
Technology-wise, where would either some technology you'd want to have, or some things that you see in the future for the sheriff's department that you I don't know, I guess like to have, or things that where technology is going that will help the profession out in general?
Well, obviously more LPRs, more cameras. Continue to develop our real-time crime center. We already have as far as heat sensors for the helicopters, but more drones. I think drones are a thing of the future. Advancement with drones. More technology as far as our SWAT. Now, one of the things I learned, at one time I was a hostage negotiator. And when I went to hostage negotiation training, one of the things that the instructor, he did push upon us is if you spend all of your money on the toy side, i.e. the weapons, SWAT gear, and less on the negotiator side, in a court of law, I can prove that you meant to end this violently. So that, I'm very interested in, are you familiar with the Vivitrol program?
Mm-mm.
So the Vivitrol program is about people who have opioid addictions. Actually, I said it right the second time. But what it is that then that way when they get out, if they take the shot, and there's a person who they take the shot, the effects of they won't feel it.
Okay.
So it's to help people. It's to help people with that. It's getting more qualified mental health professionals to deal with people. Because let's be honest, there are some people who are locked up at Lake County Jail that may not be criminals. They just need help. Now, that's not me being left. If you break the law, you break the law, and we'll, but sometimes there are some people who just need help.
Yeah, I don't think that's being left or right or anything. I think that's being empathetic and human and understanding. Doing this for almost 30 years, like you see that people go to jail because they don't necessarily have another option, and what they actually need is just some guidance and some help, and maybe, even on the opioid side, like maybe some users would benefit for the opportunity instead of going through the criminal justice system that, okay, you get arrested, but maybe you go through a deferral program and it's court ordered, like you have to go to rehab and you have to maintain a job. And now they don't have a felony arrest for a personal amount of heroin or something, and they got clean and they got their life back together. I think that, help is a good thing. It doesn't always have to go down the justice route. It could go down the help route.
And I think a lot of times that Like I remember one time I was working burglary cases, and not to as we're talking, stories come up. So what this young lady would do is very smart. Her and these two guys, they would cruise the neighborhoods during the daytime, right? And they would look for houses with no cars in the driveway because they were heroin addicts. And what they would do is they would send the young lady up to the door because disarming, right? And the young lady would say, have you seen my puppy? If somebody answered the door. Nobody answered the door, they went to the back and they kicked the door in and took your stuff. If somebody answered the door, they would just go, hey, have you seen my puppy? And you know, what do most people go? Oh, she's missing her puppy. So if you didn't answer, they would go in the back, kick the door in. The guy and the female would go in there and steal the stuff. The guy in the car would drive down around the street so the car wouldn't sit out in front of the house, so the neighbors would go, the car's sitting in front of the house. Then, as they get ready to come out the house, they'd call on the cell phone. They say, we're coming out. They'd come out, get in the car, and gone.
Pretty clever.
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
How long did they get away with that for?
Until I locked them. Until I locked them.
We teach so this will be unless you have anything that you want to talk about?
No. Other than that, just working with young people, and also one of the things I like to do is, because sometimes there are some misnomers. How many times do you deal with these people, with these sovereign citizens, or you get people who get misinformation, who cause confrontational situations with police officers who go, I don't have to step out the car. Well, actually, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
How do you think we going down that before I was going to end, but how do we fix that? I always talk about, I wish that there was a way that we could teach everyone in this country the laws and what cops can and can't do, because if you know and I know, or a criminal and I know, like, you know what I can and can't do, it makes everything, you don't have to question it now. Like, you should know. Oftentimes, if that conversation comes up, I'm like, hey, grab your phone, look up this case law. As we're doing this interaction, look it up. You can read it. Like, I would always offer that opportunity. But how do we educate society that are outside the law enforcement, criminal justice world on the laws, and not listen to social media and all this other rhetoric that's out there that people seem to flock to when they're
communication? Because one thing I've never understood about a sovereign citizen, I'm sitting there thinking, you're really going to go far telling a judge or telling anybody else your authority means nothing to me?
Yeah, that's not going to work out.
It's not going to work out. I mean, think about it. Well, the only one we obey is the sheriff. Oh, okay, so you're telling Hobart, or you're telling Maryville, or you're telling Gary. And that's one thing I've had the privilege during my career. There is not one city, town, or township I have not been a police officer in. Whether it was the Whiting homicide up there, which I still would like us to go back. It's a cold case with the Jenkins and Abu Hassan case, or I've worked in Hobart, I've worked in Snyder, I've worked in Shelby. I didn't know these places existed, but I think it all comes down to communication and talking to these people. And what I always tell my relatives is that if a police officer pulls you over, what you do is you do what he asks you to do. If he's wrong, we'll deal with it on the backside.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the courts are for. Like, I have a job to do. I give cops the faith that they're doing the right thing, or they assume that they're doing the right thing, and that's what courts are for. And if a cop does something wrong, that's what the court's for, and that rectifies itself, because now you go to court, hey, you were wrong, it's a teaching moment, maybe inconvenient, or but as long as it's not a repetitive thing where the cop's doing the same thing over and over and over again. If it's a mistake is made, we learn from it, we fix it, we move on. Because people make mistakes. I mean, it's society. Everyone
all the time.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. When you sit there and you argue, I used to tell my brother passed away in 2011, 34. I said, how do you win arguing with the police? How? I said, so let's say, you got a job. Police officer pulls you over, you get to acting stupid. I said, he takes you to jail, he tows your car. I said, so now you got to bond out. Now your car is accumulating storage fee. I said, now you got to get a tow release to get your car out. I said, now if you don't get out, you run the risk of losing your job. Then if you do get out, now you got to pay for an attorney, not to mention court costs. How have you won? You have not.
Yeah, on a traffic stop, for example, the side of the road is not the place to argue. I feel like if you think that you're right, and that's what the court will help you and guide you and be like, oh, yeah, no, he was right. The cop was wrong, and so be it. But
and don't get me wrong, that does happen. We have some cops, and I'm sure you've run into a few of them. You run into some cops, you go, dude, what are you doing? And I tell anybody, I go, listen, I'm not going to prison for none of y'all.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything wrong in front, we're good. You know, I'm not. You got one time to lose your integrity.
Yeah. No, and that's in this profession. That's all you really have. Especially with like cameras everywhere and all that type of stuff. Do you guys have cameras? Body cams?
Yes.
Everyone, or
Yes.
is it okay?
Yes. And actually, our rule is that upon interacting, you turn the body cameras on.
I mean, we'll talk about it. Well, this is coming to an end, unless you have something you want to add. And go ahead.
No, just Edward Jenkins for Sheriff 2026. Please, any support you have, I need you and all of Lake County to come out and support me. Thank you for giving me the time, Kenny. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. We always end our podcast with one question.
Make sure you see the button.
We teach for a company called Justice Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your definition of justice?
That's a good question. Not just us. Have you ever heard that term before? Yeah. Well, I heard a comedian say one time, he said, I went down to the court looking for justice, and that's what I found, just us. No, justice is what's right. What's right, what's just. To bring, you know, what's good. That's justice. You know, in my opinion, we will all grow to be a society of peace and love, and we'll all get together. Now, is that naive? To a certain extent, yeah. But I think a lot of the things that people try to be divisive about, most citizens aren't into that. Most citizens are into, hey, they're just hardworking people that want to do justice and just come home, raise their family, pay their taxes, and even though taxes are getting a little ridiculous, But that's just you just want to live a good life,
Yeah.
and, you know, and not get religious. Some people want to worship their God, whatever they want to live, however they want to live. Just let people be. That's justice to me.
I like it. Well, I appreciate you joining me on Beyond the Barrel, and I wish you nothing but the best in this run for sheriff.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.